The CXPod is brought to you by Netigate. Netigate helps you put your customers at the center of your business. Check them out at netigate.net.
Welcome to the CXPod, where we aim to expand people's perception of customer experience management. We know that customer experience goes hand in hand with employee experience, and we believe that a broader and more holistic view might even replace terms like CX and EX with people experience or human experience.
Hello and welcome to the CXPod once again, Joanna. Hello, Andrew. I'm actually going to start with Andrew today, Joanna, just to make a change. Hello, Andrew.
Hello there. Nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. How are you?
I'm doing great today. It's a beautiful day in San Francisco. Fall's our best time because that's when we actually get the sunshine. So I'm having a great day.
Awesome. Autumn in San Francisco sounds lovely. And I like the fact that just a few weeks back, we had another guest from San Francisco. So we're starting to sort of cover your area now. And that means that we already know that you're ish 9 hours behind us. So that's why I say good evening and you say it's a beautiful day. So if somebody got confused by that, that's because there's a little time difference going on tonight or today. So Joanna, how are you? First of all, we need to talk to you as well before we get going.
I'm absolutely fabulous. Thank you, Marietta. And Andrew, it's wonderful to see you here on the CXPod. We've actually met before during, and I think you should tell the story about this a little bit more, but I am actually a judge on the International Customer Experience Awards or the European Customer Experience Awards. And this is where, of course, I had the pleasure to first be introduced to you, Andrew, and to the company that you work for, Cisco, for the fantastic customer experience initiative that you actually also won in the awards. So a big round of applause.
Thank you very much. Best Digital Customer Experience for the European Customer Experience Award. We have won that for the International Customer Experience Award and the U.S. Customer Experience Award in the past. And I will be judging along with you the International Customer Experience Award. So very much looking forward to that and coming to London for that.
That's very cool. So Joanna, is there any time difference where you are? It seems a little darker. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
right
no.
In Norway.
Yeah, I'm right here in Norway. So no time difference. Yeah. But we're definitely good to go and very much looking forward to learning a little bit more about you, Andrew.
Yeah. So we're going to let you introduce yourself, but can you just please tell us a little bit about, Cisco? Because it's huge, right? So which part is it that you represent and or maybe we should even bake that into who is Andrew, and then you can talk about yourself and Cisco.
Yeah, I think so.
Sure. So, excuse me. I'm at Cisco Systems, which is a very large, as you mentioned, multinational technology company. Started off selling hardware, we used to call ourselves the plumbers of the internet, routers, switches, everything that people needed to be able to get onto the internet. For a brief moment in 1999, we were the largest company in the world. Since then, we have switched along with the rest of the tech world to focusing more on software and from a financial perspective on recurring revenue. So I've been at Cisco for a while and therefore was had the opportunity to be one of the founders of our customer experience function, which was about 13, 14 years ago. We never had a CX function when we sold hardware. We sold hardware, customers bought it. They built a whole universe of IT professionals trained in Cisco specifically. They paid for it they paid for the hardware up front. So essentially they were trapped, to put it bluntly. And now with the rise of cloud computing and software-defined networking and the move into software generally and SaaS software, now we're in what I would call the age of the customer, where the barriers to exit for a customer are very low, which means the responsibility is on the company to provide a customer experience that will help customers get the value they're looking for so that they'll stay, so that they'll grow with us, so that they'll renew with us. And that's why we started the customer experience function. So I've had the opportunity to watch the growth of a function at a large multinational company from day one. There were 50 of us out of 65,000 employees at the time who started the CX function. I've always been in the CX organization since then. There are about 3,000 of us, 4,000 of us in the CX function now.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
I was just thinking, if you were 50, how many are you now? At 3,000. Okay.
It's
Sorry that I
Norwegian
interrupted.
village, actually.
Yeah.
It's very large, which means there are complications around that as well with the function itself being so large. I've always been from the get-go part of digital, so the digital customer experience component within the CX function. I think we're a little unusual at Cisco in that from day one, when we were building out our CX function, digital was a component to it. And so at the beginning, it was a way to scale to customers that were, maybe lower dollar customers, because we have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of customers around the world in 140 different countries. Most of our business goes through partners, so we have to figure out how to work with our partners to drive customer success, adoption, renewals, growth. So that's always been a part of what we've tried to figure out, and we therefore have had the opportunity to spend the last 14 years or so really maturing not only our CX approach, but the digital component of that. So we look at digital very differently now than we did when we started. So anyway, that's I have been at Cisco for a while. Prior to that, I came from marketing. I think a lot of people in CX either come from marketing or customer support. So in sort of generally speaking, I came up from a marketing perspective. Wrote a book years ago on public relations called the Publicity Handbook before I got into CX, and have really helped drive then our digital customer experience strategy, as well as our partner approach to digital customer experience. So that's a little bit about who I am. As I mentioned, I'm based in the San Francisco area, and just thrilled to be here.
And you have a wife who has a dog. We learned about you as well, didn't we?
I do have a wife who has a little white, fluffy Bichon.
That's awesome. And also, and I'm going to out you now. We talked about this previously, so bear with me. But we know that you've recently been in the Nordics. You went to Iceland, you went to Denmark, you went to Sweden, and then you just skipped Norway. So, but now you're here in the Norwegian CXPod. As much as we like to be international now, we still know where we came from. So no, this is a little band-aid on the wound, but then obviously you're going to have to come and visit us
Absolutely
in the future.
Yeah, and it might well be that we drop a few marketing for Norway during the podcast show today.
Yeah, we already mentioned the Northern Lights, so yeah.
Now I have
no, but it's.
I absolutely will come back.
Absolutely, and so and we say it with a lot of warm felt care and humor as well. So but we like to have fun. This is a serious podcast, but we love to joke around as well. So we need to take I'm not sure if we're allowed to say take a piss in a podcast, but it's our podcast, so I'll say it anyway, and so we'll do it. So I mean, you talked a little bit about your experience, and it's such an interesting journey. From a today perspective, what would you say is your field of expertise today?
So very much focused on digital customer experience, and a growing expertise in artificial intelligence in the service of digital customer experience. So when I talk about digital customer experience, I think the initial reaction that a lot of people have is, oh, you mean a website, or emails, or maybe looking at other channels as well. And it's sort of the proverbial tip of the iceberg, where the part that people see above the waterline is are the different touch points, whether it be a company's website and trying to make that easy for people to find information that they're looking for, whether that be just a quick information sheet, or whether it be problem solving information or guided steps along their adoption path, or whether it be trying to find information and make sure that it's the most up-to-date version of that, right? So even the website alone can be a complex situation. At a company as large as Cisco, we have something like 30 million unique visitors a year to our website. So everyone looking for different type of information, because we sell so many different types of products. So even that alone is an endeavor. But then we also have our Cisco community, and we have 20 million unique visitors a year to the Cisco community, 2 million who have signed up to be members. And they're looking to interact with their peers and make sure that they're getting real information from real peers that is also accurate. You have some Cisco people monitoring those communities to make sure that the information being shared is accurate. And then also it is email, which is still a vital channel for a lot of our customers, along with social media channels, along with SMS. So all the different touch points in an omni-channel experience go into the digital customer experience. The part that's under the water that people don't see is really the hard part. That is tying together all the data about customers, the processes that customers go through and that we go through on the back end to deliver the information to customers, to work across teams and silos, to work across platforms, so that what customers do receive is a personalized experience that is consistent across the different touch points, across the different products that they own from Cisco, that is a simple experience. And that's hard to do at any company, but the more complex companies, like one as large as Cisco, that's very difficult to do. So it sounds simple, digital customer experience, but it's incredibly complex to deliver. And I would say that while I mentioned earlier that we think about digital customer experience differently now, 14 years later, than we did when we started. And that's because when we started, we thought of it really as a scaling mechanism. And now there's certainly a scaling benefit to digital customer experience. But beyond that, we believe that every customer wants a digital first customer experience. It doesn't mean digital only, but it means their first approach when they need information, when they need troubleshooting, when they're just looking for maybe even to purchase. So, their first approach is going to be digital. They're going to go to a website, community, Reddit, wherever it might be. You mentioned I just came to the Nordics over the summer. I didn't start by calling up an airline. I started digitally, and then I mentioned AI as an area of expertise too. And AI is playing a significant role in how we're looking and how we're implementing digital customer experience at Cisco, and I think how other companies are as well. Everything from using it to analyze huge amounts of customer data so that we can look for patterns and look for predictive insights so that we try to understand what a customer is going to need and provide it for them before they even ask for it. Right? That's the level of simplicity that we're striving for, and value add. Using generative AI as well to be able to take core material and turn it into multiple versions of that same material, be that many different languages, in a cost-effective way to do the translation, or maybe taking a sort of thick, technical, heavy document and turning it into a version that is maybe more for business users, whether that be taking an hour-long video and turning it into 3 to 5 minute chunks, or maybe turning it into an infographic. So different forms and different lengths of the same information so that customers can receive the information the way they want to, in the language they want, in the format they want. Generative AI for that. So there's really a huge explosion in that. So I've been studying that and putting together our digital customer experience strategy at Cisco the last couple of years. And I also sit on the advisory board for here in San Francisco. We have the University of San Francisco, and their graduate management program has a program focused specifically on strategic AI for business. And I sit on the advisory board for that, which is helped me bring in a lot of outside information into what we're doing.
Yeah.
Can I just say, sorry, Jana, it's just a comment really, but I am so happy and relieved to hear from, an expert on AI working for the University of San Francisco, talking about the way you use AI and what you think that it should be used for. And I think a lot of people, like, it's not that I was that scared to begin with, but it's just so good to hear that, because this is it. This is where AI needs to be, and not replacing humans, just simplifying things so that humans can be human more.
Right.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. We needed that.
Absolutely.
We needed to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a few things here I think that I really wanted to sort of unpack, because I think that we also need to hear. One of those is the fact that you mentioned, Andrew, that you're the digital first. I hear very much that you're very customer first as well, because this is something that, if I'm understanding correctly, the customer, the CX team, has always been at the forefront in the digital development serving that's being put in place to serve the customer. I mean, am I being correct? And I know this sounds so simple, but
No, you're absolutely correct. It may sound simple, but it's actually very difficult to do.
I don't think many do invite the customer experience team into, okay, we're going to improve our digital architecture, our digital systems, all of our channels that actually interact with our companies. I think there's still very many companies that do not have somebody within the development teams that is actually a customer experience
So you're absolutely
advisor.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And in fact, I'd say probably for the first 2 or 3 years, when we started the customer experience function at Cisco, the first 2 or 3 years, we really spent most of our time doing two things. One, we felt like an IT shop where we were trying to get access to systems, tie systems together, find all the data, all the customer data and partner data within Cisco. And that took a long time to do. We knew about some core systems, the customer database, the renewals, purchasing, that sort of thing. But we would go to talk to these people to get access to those databases. Sometimes they wouldn't even give it to us. Like, we had to find them to get access to the customer data. It wasn't their data; it was the Cisco data. And then it was like pulling a thread on a sweater, where they would say, "Oh, and here's this other database. Oh, you should talk to, Sally or Joe or whomever, right?" And to find another database. And we kept finding all these disconnected databases. So we felt like we were an IT shop. And number two, we were evangelists for the discipline of experience. What does it mean to have a good customer experience? Again, within Cisco, nobody had cared about this before. The company was, 25 years old at that point. So a long history of not needing to care about the discipline of experience. So we sort of watched the growth of the discipline of experience internationally, and then we're able to bring that into Cisco specifically to talk about things like we ended up working with our security team, and we have a number of security products, 9 or 10. Our customers had been asking for a bundle of these, because email security, web security, on and on, different types of security. So customers said, well, we want a bundle of all of that. It took us years to finally say, sure, we'll do that. Then when customers were offered the opportunity to buy the bundle, they jumped at it, right? We were selling them like hotcakes. But then as soon as customers, finished signing the contract, they got 9 different welcome emails taking them to 9 different security products. None of them looked the same. Some of them didn't even say Cisco on them. There were, acquisitions we'd made, and we'd never bothered to change the name to Cisco. So it was a horrible experience. Or even looking at something like a chatbot, we had, probably a dozen different chatbots across Cisco, where different teams had said, hey, wouldn't it be great if we had a customer chatbot? We'll pull this information together. Love the enthusiasm, but everyone, different color schemes, different places in the chatbot where you type in the information, and honestly, sometimes different information from chatbot 1 to chatbot 2. So to come into, we really were consultants internally about the discipline of experience. So so you're absolutely right about needing to explain experience and what that means and how to provide it and why it's so important, and bringing in examples of other companies that provide a really good customer experience. That helped, over time, that helped us gain converts internally.
Absolutely amazing story. And I'm sure this is a story. I know that this is a story for inspiration for so many of our listeners who are probably very much still in the early stages of the journey that you've actually been through in Cisco, I predict. So thank you so much for sharing. We talked about customer experience. How would you define customer experience?
I define customer experience in the best definition I've heard is really from the Customer Experience Professional Association, which is, I'm going to paraphrase this a little bit, but it's delivering on the promise of the brand. So it's almost, the same side of it, or the different side of the same coin. You have the brand promise. This is what you're going to get when you work with Amazon or Coca-Cola. You pick your company, B2B or B2C, or B2E, B to everything. And then customer experience is the approach to deliver on that brand promise. And I think across all brands, and again, whether it's consumer focused or business focused, there are some key components that all customer experiences must deliver. And that is, it's got to be simple for customers. It's got to add value. It's got to be consistent, and it's got to be personalized to who they are. And when I say personalized, I don't just mean, dear Joanna. I mean, understanding what you bought, where you are in your adoption process, what information I can give you that's going to help you move from point A to B and B to C and C to D as quickly and as simply as possible. And there are lots of examples of companies that don't do that well, right? That make it hard to work with them. I'm not saying Cisco does it perfectly. We're a lot more mature and a lot better than we used to be. We have areas to improve upon. But there are some companies that really it's a struggle to do even basic things with them. And that's when customers will leave, right? And that's the other thing that I would add on the definition of customer experience, is that every customer is having an experience with every company that they work with. Now, whether that company is involved in guiding that experience is a different story. And I think that there are some companies that still haven't quite understood that they need to actively understand what customers are looking for and curate an experience that provides that for them. They just sort of assume, well, we built a website, it's all about pricing. Spoiler alert, it's not about pricing. The expected customer experience that a prospect thinks they're going to get from a company is a more important purchasing factor for them than the price, right? So, and that's a Gartner and Forrester and other analysts, right? That's not just me talking. So, companies that fail to really focus in on what do our customers need and investing in the technology, the processes, the process improvement, all the things I'm talking about, including the digital element. The companies that fail to really focus in on that are the ones that are going to struggle, because customers will go elsewhere. They'll stop buying more. They'll stop renewing. And, it may be a little bit of a lag, a year or two down the line, but it will happen, right? So those are all sort of components of when I define customer experience, how I define it.
And I love how you explain and how you define it, because it's a perfect segue for the next question as well. So thank you for that. Two things actually. So when you talk now, you refer to the companies, they must understand and they must do and they have to, right? So you refer to them as they. So and also because just reminding ourselves that you come from a department sort of in Cisco with 50 employees that are now 3,000. So of the 3,000, who should be responsible for the customer experience, making sure that they do what they should do and they have to, and they, who are they?
Yeah.
Who's responsible?
So broadly speaking, every employee at a company is responsible for the customer experience because they're all involved in one way, either sort of, front of the house. If you're thinking of a restaurant, right, the waiters, the bus boys, right, they're all, the hostess, they're all, directly interacting with the customer. But it's the back of the house, it's the cooks, it's the procurement people who are getting the ingredients. Right? It's all of that play a role in the customer experience. So broadly speaking, every employee is involved in delivering the customer experience. But I think getting more about what you're getting at, there needs to be a team. I don't think one person can do it, but there needs to be a team, even in a small company, it can be a small team that has responsibility for figuring out what the customer experience should be for that company's customers, and then working collaboratively across the company to deliver that experience. So that doesn't mean that it could be a customer experience C-level executive. It could be somebody working. I wouldn't put it in sales because I think there's a misalignment there. But it could be in operations. It could be in various areas. As long as that person has at least a couple of people, it can't be a one person solo show, to help again evangelize the discipline of experience, to work across organizationally, to break down silos, to pull in data, processes, people, platforms, to be able to deliver that experience. And there has to be a focus on the customers themselves, on what they need, and putting the voice of the customer front and center.
Yeah,
I wanted to say you're preaching to the choir because I can just see myself and Maretta just going.
Yeah, and when you mentioned maybe someone in operations, and I've said so many times that if I had to choose between a chief customer experience officer or a chief operating officer who is customer centric, I would definitely go with the last, right? Because the chief customer experience officer will be in the corner of the organization, sort of, oh, you're responsible for the customers, and people look at it as something that you can just sort of, put baby in the corner. So I agree, and it's sort of become like a philosophical question to us because there's no answer that's the same, and it's probably different from organization to organization. But it's always interesting to hear specific people's take on it based on the context of where they come from and where they are. So, but yeah, it's amazing how it's a different version of the same story. Basically, everyone is aligned, but still the answers are very different. So
but I think you really pointed out something crucial today, Andrew, and that was the fact of that you need a team. You can't do this on your own, and also talking about the different sort of activities that you actually need to go out there and do, such as evangelism.
Right.
So
right. Yep. It's too big of a job for one person to do. And I think if it's one person, I think it's easy to, as you mentioned, Marette, sort of put that person in a corner, and they start talking about the customer, and it's easy to sort of ignore. So it has to be a few people. I think there's got to be somebody who's a data specialist who can pull in data, understands data. So some sort of data science expertise, because I think that's a huge part of where we're going. Data is the fuel. Now, not all data is clean data. So there has to be somebody who understands how to work with data, how to be able to draw insights from it. There's got to be somebody with some expertise around voice of the customer and how to listen to the customers, how to bring that information in and make sense of what the customer is saying. There are different tools for doing that as well. And then how to share that information internally as well, part of the evangelism. You've got to have at least those two roles, and that would be at a small company to have, along with the person who's sort of leading the charge. So
you started off with 50, right?
Right. At a company of like I said, 65,000 employees, it was a drop in the bucket. It was, we were dipping our toes in the water. And again, it's a global company, hundreds of thousands of customers, 130, 40 countries. So 50 sounds like a lot. And, you know, and
Yeah,
so,
no, but it shows that even Cisco started off with the baby in the corner, so to say.
yes, 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 yes,
You know?
yes. And
Yeah,
we knocked on doors and said, "Can we come in? You know, let's sit down, let's
yeah.
have a conversation." And we brought in data from industry analysts, from our own customers, you know, customer surveys, partner surveys, and working with our own sales teams to get access to customers, to have sort of one-on-one interviews with them as well. And then we brought that into the conversations with different parts of the company
Mm.
to help show them this is not us trying to build an empire within Cisco. These are your customers talking about the problems they're having and the frustrations they're having. Let's talk about jointly how to solve for that. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's how we
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah. And I think we're talking about, of course, voice of the customer here and the value of being able to democratize.
Democratize.
Thank you.
Democratize.
Yes.
She's actually English.
It's always me who
But she
struggles with my
spells things
English
differently.
words.
So
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, but democratize the data across different silos and different and I can imagine as well for Cisco that has been a huge activity or a demanding activity, should I say. Of course, there's many companies out there that are wondering, okay, well, how can we do that? And I think this is a great time to mention as well that there are tools available out there that can help you to gather information about your customers, even real-time information, and to be able to share that information across departments and silos in order to be able to enable people to within the organization to make good decisions based on the data that's being gathered. And of course, we are sponsored by such a platform, Netigate. So if anybody is thinking about how can I find out more information about such a platform, I would recommend that you actually go out and check out Netigate, for example.
and
Yeah.
that's critical. You know, sometimes people ask me, how important is the voice of the customer? Don't you already know it? Don't you know what your customers want? Don't your product management or product marketing people, haven't they already done that information? And the answer is they haven't done that information. They've talked to customers, but for their own specific purpose to figure out
Yes.
how do we market this product? How do we improve this product? But that's different than how do we fashion a customer experience to drive to better adoption? And if companies, if people are not out there listening to proactively accumulating the voice of the customer and in a way that allows them to analyze it, make sense of it, share it, right? So it can't just be I did a survey and I've got a spreadsheet on my laptop. So you really need a tool to be able to do this properly.
Yeah.
And if you're not, then you need to be exceedingly lucky.
Yeah.
And luck is not a strategy.
No. And I think there's so many things that I could sort of pick on what you, or not pick on, but pick out of what you talked about. And one of the things that I want to sort of pull out of it
Pick on.
is pick on is we're talking about democratizing the data and haven't the experience when you as a CX manager or as a CX whatever your role is and you go to the sales department or you go to marketing or you go to product and you say, look, I have this data, we've sort of been doing this survey, and then all of a sudden they become very protective of their customer as if it was their customer, right? So sometimes, and I know Claire Muscat talks about this a little bit, maybe not in the same sense, but how being customer centric can actually ruin a good customer experience, because if product is customer centric in their way, and then marketing is customer centric in their way, and then sales is customer centric in their way, the total experience is going to be like a train ride in Norway, right? So now we got that into it's going to be bumps and jumps and so it's that's why it's so crucial to have one truth, and that's why you need the capacity from an analyst who can actually sort of neutralize it and say, look, this isn't for sales, this isn't for marketing, this isn't for product, this isn't for customer service. This is actually the voice of the customer. This is what they're saying. But we need to be able to trust that data. So yes, start with a great platform. We can recommend one especially, but also you need to have the competency around it also to be able to transform data into real insights, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then I'll add one component to that. You have to share that information transparently within the company. So
yes,
this is part of the connectivity, with the iceberg underneath the waterline that people don't see, but it's or the back end of the restaurant. It's taking the information and sharing it with your CSMs, or with your product marketing teams, or just marketing in general. And the more you can do that in an automated fashion, the more you can remove human elements from processes, not humans, but just from this sort of administrative processes, so that
yes,
can focus in on sort of higher value customer contact and customer knowledge, and then automate the insertion, so that when a CSM goes to contact a customer proactively, or maybe is responding to a customer inquiry, the CSM has the data in that company's sales force automation or CRM system, whatever you might be using. They not only have sort of some basic data of name, address, what they purchased, but they also know, what has this customer been doing from an adoption standpoint, or from a renewal standpoint. Where are they in the process? What information have they been looking at? So they've got that information at their fingertips in the system that they use every day, because that information has been designed, the process has been designed to include them in the information in real or near real time. Same thing with the other parts of the organization. I find that coming at the problem that way helps to decrease some of the, you can't have this data, it's my data. Right? No, we're going to share all of the data, your data with us, our data with you. We're all going to be working off of the same set of data about the customer. So to your point, Marie, it's the customer's data.
Yeah, that's great.
And
we're gonna
the customer's data,
down.
And we're gathering it and using it in order to improve the customer's experience. It is simple.
Right.
Yeah. And deliver on our brand promise, but back to what it's all about.
Right. Because again, the customer's having an experience. Do we want them to have a good experience, which will lead to these outcomes that we want? So
brilliant.
Andrew, what is capturing your attention today in the world of in organizations in their goal towards creating a more customer-centric organization? What's out there? What's happening? What's capturing your attention?
Well, it's a couple of things, and we've touched on them a little bit. So I'll mention three things. One is the role of AI and how companies can use AI. There are various AI tools out there. So this is not, we're past the stage of, I have to, have a whole computer science department to build out AI tools, right? So there are a number of tools that are available for either for free or for, having an enterprise license to protect customer data and company and intellectual property. But how do we use AI to better understand our customers, and then to better personalize the experience that we're providing them with? So I touched on some of that before, but it's using sort of this sounds weird, but traditional AI, and what that is really, we just call it machine learning, to ingest massive amounts of customer data to be able to understand, who are these customers, what are they likely to do, who are the ones that are most likely to churn, who are the ones that are most likely to have trouble adopting, based on what we know about customers like them, based on what we know about them, and then fashioning information that we can share with them in the channel or channels that customer uses, in order to head off any problems they might have, or help them advance if they seem to be getting stuck, to provide them with the information that they're looking for. So there's so much information involved in that really we need massive data science capability. And I say capability, but oftentimes it comes very cheaply, to be able to, so that's one, AI. Sort of going out to the next layer of the onion, moving out from the core would be digital customer experience in general. That AI, I'd say, would be part of that. And I think that companies are starting to understand, more and more companies are starting to understand that, as we mentioned before, every customer wants a digital first customer experience. They want to be able to quickly find what they're looking for, or solve their problems, answer their questions, whether it be at 2 a.m. and they can't sleep, or it's Saturday afternoon,
Yes.
or the kids' football match, or whatever it might be, or it's just in the middle of the workday, and they want to be, because it's faster. Now, I think companies used to think, well, that's just for millennials, or that's just for Gen Z. And I think more and more companies are starting to realize, no, that's for everybody, because all their analysts are telling them that. Their customers, if they're listening, are telling them that. I spoke with one of the leaders of Salesforce's digital customer experience organization about a month ago, and he was telling me the same thing. This is what our customers are telling us also. So it used to be, well, digital is really just to scale that to the customers that I'm not covering with a CSM. And because of that, I think it's, well, my most important customers get a CSM. And so really it's the lower value customers. It led companies to not invest as much in their digital customer experience approach, in their strategy, not just in the technology, not just sort of dollars going out to pay for, technologies around website or a MarTech stack or that type of thing, but just even in how am I thinking about this? So I think that that's the second thing that I'm seeing right now that I really care about is customers are starting to realize, oh no, every customer wants a digital first experience, which then also means, how do we provide that? And how do we provide an easy off ramp for those customers that don't get what they want digitally, that need to talk to somebody, whether that be on the phone or in an email exchange or a chat experience, whatever it might be, right? So it's got to be easy. We've all worked with companies where we're trying to solve something for ourselves digitally. We can't. I've done this. I'm not going to name the company, but when I was trying to return a product, I couldn't figure out how to do it, and I get a question that I had about postage, and there was no way for me. I spent probably 30 minutes trying to figure out where do I even go to find a phone number or a chatbot, something. Right? So that doesn't work, right? Digital only does not. I mean, digital first does not mean digital only. So that's the second thing, is I think shifting attitudes within companies about the role of digital customer experience. And then the third thing that I am seeing and that is important to me is, and I think probably to many of your audience here, is I think there's starting to be a shift in the maturity level of companies when it comes to thinking about customer experience. And I don't blame companies for being a little confused, right? Over the last 12, 15 years, there's been this massive growth in the discipline of customer experience. And because of that, it became kind of a chic thing to have, right? It became hip. So everybody wanted to tie themselves to customer experience. So then you had traditional customer support organizations and vendors saying, "Oh, I'm customer experience." You had folks involved in marketing saying, "Well, I'm customer experience because I'm all about the customer." And then you had, the folks who were focused in on what we would call really customer experience. So the types of things we've been talking about. It's confusing if you're not in the industry. So there was this growth of customer experience fueled in large part by everybody saying it's so important and everybody talking about the business benefits that companies would get if they invested in a CX team. So you're going to get higher renewal rates. You're going to get upsell and cross-sell benefits. You're going to have more loyal customers. Isn't that going to be great? And then the CX world came out with CX-specific metrics to prove their value, things like CSAT scores and NPS scores. And I'm not saying there's no value in those scores, but I don't know of any CEO or CFO that wakes up in the morning and think, I wonder what my NPS score is. So I think that what happened was, as the global business climate got tight over the last few years, people started to look at their investments and started to look at the CX organization saying, I'm not really sure what you deliver. I know what I'm investing in you. I'm not really sure what this NPS thing means. You can't really tie it directly to the additional dollars or kroners or, pick your currency, euros. So things started to get cut, not just CX, but CX definitely was exposed to that. What I'm seeing now, so that was all context as to what I'm seeing now. The third thing that I'm focusing on is I think we have an opportunity for growth in the CX function over the next couple of years, because I think the global economy is improving. Interest rates are coming down a little bit. I think we're going to see more businesses investing in growth. And they're looking around, and I think that the CX function, those that are going to be successful, I think they're starting to realize we need to make sure that we are tying what we do to the business metrics that our senior leadership cares about. How am I decreasing customer churn? How am I increasing renewal rates and sales? How am I driving adoption rates faster? How am I, and this is a big one too, especially with digital, how am I averting or avoiding costs from customers going a self-service route when they need help versus contacting one of my customer support agents? There's a cost associated with that customer support call. If we can avoid that by having a good customer experience that allows customers to essentially find what they're looking for and self-troubleshoot, measuring the cost avoidance, those sorts of factors, I think, are going to allow for a renewed period of growth for the CX function that's based more on what companies care about and measure their business impact than it will be about sort of vague promises that can't be tied directly to what the businesses care about.
Yeah. You basically just answered Joanna's favorite question in the question challenge now. The last
I was thinking the same.
And
how do we sell this in?
How do you sell it in, right? So, and how do you secure funding for your customer experience initiatives? You need to quantify and make sure that we see the link between the initiatives that we do and and I think also cost reduction is, we may not be able to raise the bottom line that much, but we will be able to, well, by cost reducing we will, but we're not going to increase I think cash flow too much, but we will be able to reduce the and also I think every single call to customer service, as much as because you can tie a cost to it, and that cost sometimes adds value as well because this customer actually need to make that call. But if you could be proactive enough so that you would avoid the customers needing to call you in the first place, that's another way of, so instead of removing the channel, you could keep it for those few who need it, but then you avoid having the ones who actually wouldn't have needed it to call in the first place. So it's so many approaches to this.
Yes. And what we did at Cisco from the get-go was figure out how do we build stakeholders internally, right? Because we knew we were going to do that. We were a relatively small team inside a huge company. And how do we measure our impact? So instead of us deciding how are we going to measure our impact, this is sort of analogous to the voice of the customer, is we went to our stakeholders. We went to the head of customer success. So that's for Cisco, that's globally as well as in Europe and Europe, Middle East, Africa, Asia, and the Americas. So we went to all of them. Same thing with renewal. Same thing with sales. Same thing with customer support, and figured out what they care about. What are they measured on?
Yes.
And literally, like, what is your bonus on? What do you report out to the C-level executives at Cisco? And let's figure out if there's a way to tie what we do to that. And if so, how do we do that? So in some cases, like the cost avoidance, we came up in conjunction with customer support and Cisco Finance. We jointly discussed and agreed upon a metric. The average cost of a call is, X number of dollars. And if we can avoid a call like that, that's the cost avoidance number. So it was a number that everybody was bought into, right? We didn't have to convince people of what we were doing. What we then had to do was figure out how do we measure what, the way we're able to provide answers to customer questions and be able to track that. And then knowing that those questions were not going to the support team. So there's a whole process development and measurement that had to take place. But once we did that and developed that from the ground up, then we had buy-in from everybody that we were saving hundreds of millions of dollars a year, still are.
Yeah.
And same thing with I'll just throw out a couple of numbers that sound impressive, but and they are, but put them in perspective of Cisco. We're a $50 billion a year company in revenue or turnover, I think the European term would be. So we were able to drive $200 million in incremental sales during the renewal process that we could track annually by figuring out digitally how to make the renewal process easier for customers. And at the time of renewal, giving them the opportunity to upsell themselves to a higher level of service or premium level, or cross-sell customers like you who bought this security product, bought that security product. And then we can track all of that. So being able to measure what you do and the value you provide in terms that make sense to your stakeholders not only allows you to prove your worth, but builds collaborators with you, right? So people say, build that team up, give me more of them. When we started, I'll finish with this. When we started with the renewal sales organization, we were touching opportunities that they didn't touch, right? So this was the scaling opportunity. And we were so successful that the head of the renewal sales said, tell you what I want to do. I want to give you a quota. I want you to handle digitally. You're going to be responsible for the band of customers that have, in our case, it was $25,000 a year or less annual renewal contract value. And I'm going to take any of my renewals managers who are working on that, and I'm going to move them up the stack to higher value customers. Let's see how you do. So every week we showed up and we reported out at the sales calls with our quota, et cetera. And at the end of the first year, we weren't sure how we were going to do because this is the first year we were going to have a quota. At the first year, we had the same renewal rate as the accounts covered by renewal managers. At the end of the second year, we had a higher renewal rate than accounts covered by humans, by renewal managers. This is digital only. So then each year, the head of renewal sales would say, all right, your quota is now $50,000 and below annual recurring. Now we're at $75,000 and below. So he hasn't had, he's been able to take his renewal managers or she and put them on a set of customers that really weren't getting the love and attention that they wanted. Because we've been able to measure explicitly the impact we've been able to have. And as a result, we've got a friend for life internally.
Yeah, I love it. And I think this is, again, a perfect segue to the next, and it's actually going to be our last question for today, which is, how do you see, and it feels like it's a leading question now because of the context, but how do you see customer experience and employee experience? What are the links there, and how do they affect each other? And feel free to use this latest example, because I can imagine people weren't getting less happy when this was happening. Am I right?
You're absolutely correct. So they're inextricably tied together, employee experience and customer experience, because the employees are the ones who, whether front of the house or back of the house, are shaping the customer experience. So you have to have employees that are, number one, bought in to the concept of customer experience, to how important that is to the growth and the health of the organization where they work. And second of all, you have to be, as an organization, bought into, let's make sure that our employees have the tools and the information they need in order to be successful in their roles. So it's not just simply a matter of, there's the old joke about, the beatings will continue until morale improves. So it's not just simply a matter of telling employees, you have to do this, and if you're not doing it, you have to try harder. It's a matter of understanding, what do our employees need to be successful? Let's take AI as a great example. Cisco put in place a responsible AI policy to make sure that we are protecting ourselves legally, protecting our brand, but at the same time, we want our own employees to become proficient in AI so that they can they can be as successful as possible. That'll make Cisco as successful as possible. That'll make our customers as successful as possible. So how do we sort of let 1,000 flowers bloom while at the same time putting guardrails in place so that people aren't sharing customer data or company data, broadly out in public? So a couple of things: bringing in enterprise licenses of ChatGPT and some other tools so that people could play internally in a sandbox internally without risk. But then also, we've invested in lots of training. We have a corporate green belt training, which is sort of AI for beginners. We have a blue belt, which is for more mid-level experience, and then black belt, which is for engineers to really geek out on it and build things. And then I've been running a series for our digital customer experience team, a series of additional AI trainings to help our own employees get comfortable. So it's everything like bringing in people from our team to explain to the broader team, the digital customer experience team. There are about 250 of us globally. How do we, what are we doing currently with AI, and explaining that. I gave a session that was just personal uses, how I used AI to plan a trip 2 summers ago I took to Bulgaria and Romania. And so people start to understand, I can dip my toes in and play with it personally or professionally. We did a session on prompt engineering. So a series of trainings. That's the type of thing where it's equipping our team with not just tools and guidelines, but with knowledge to help them be successful and to fuel their imagination. So when companies start to focus on their employees and the employee experience that way, versus it's really hard to use the tools. If I'm a CSM, I've got to go to 15 different tools to understand what my customers are doing. And that's the type of experience that leads to frustration, just as it would if our customers were experiencing that in their role with customers. So making it simple for our employees to understand what they're trying to do and to do it leads to productive employees and a positive customer experience.
Yeah. And I think this is also one of the things we've talked quite a lot about, that before, I think when we used to talk about employee experience, we did refer a lot to the fluffy activities, which, they're great. And it's nice to do the social get-togethers. But at the end of the day, employees, the same as our customers, they have jobs to be done. And the jobs that they are doing, they will have experiences while they are trying to get their jobs to be done. And that experience is inevitably the experience that we need to ensure is a good experience, because that is what creates an employee experience that keeps them motivated, keeps them loyal, keeps them wanting to serve our customers and other people around us. In a good manner. So I think, I just totally resonate with what you're saying, Andrew.
Yeah, and I love to hear about all the training options that you have.
Yeah.
Because I think when it comes to employee experience, touching customer experience or not, but to be able to thrive somewhere, you need to be able to develop, right? And if you're only doing the same thing day in and day out, as much as you want to be customer centric, that too is going to be it's going to go away eventually if you're not thriving, because we human beings need to develop and we need to learn. So I think it's great to hear that you have such a big program to educate people and sandboxes to play around and for maybe the smaller companies probably can't afford to do all of those things, but it's great to hear that somebody who's that big actually prioritize spending money on that, because I believe that has a value. Again, it's one of the fluffy things, like I believe, and I can't quantify any numbers to it, but I'm 100% convinced that it has an effect on your culture and your employees. And I don't know that many people who've been working with Cisco, but I do know a few. So one has been working across Europe and in different countries, and one has been working for Cisco in Norway. And it's impressive how they both, you can see the culture shining through, and it's the same culture that I feel that you're representing as well, that it's a company that takes care of their employees. It's not always perfect. There's going to be a bust, but so thank you, Andrew, for sort of letting us in on how Cisco is doing things and on your journey, your experience, what you're doing. It's so amazing. I wish we could have another hour talking to you. Unfortunately, we're going to have to round up. It's also getting a little late in Norway. You would have known that if you were here. No, I'm just kidding. I'm done now. I'm done. I'm sorry. But it's been a true pleasure, and really you should come back. You know, we could even do it in person if you want, but we definitely would like to hear from you again. So to all of you listeners out there, if you want to see more of Andrew, I'm sure he is happy to have you following him on LinkedIn. We're going to drop a link to your LinkedIn page in the show notes, and any other social media that's going to be relevant for that. So thank you for listening. Thank you again, Andrew. Thank you again, Joanna, for another nice episode. You have been listening to the CXPod. Have a great day ahead. Thank you for listening to the CXPod. If you want to reach us, you can always find us on LinkedIn, and please remember to follow us on Spotify and leave a review of what you think.